Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's Sunday, June 30th, 2024. And at the top of the clown news world is the controlled demolition debate, is what we're going to call it. The controlled demolition debate. And also, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court ruling on misinformation on social media sites, which, of course, is going to directly affect us on YouTube. Now, let's start with that first, since it's going to definitely affect this channel and our ability to speak honestly about what we believe is truly happening in the world. I can't even believe what is going on with this. First of all, before we even read a single word of this article, nobody would disagree with the kinds of misinformation that were coming out of the pharmaceutical companies, Fauci, of course, when it came to the expectations and risks surrounding the poker. They were all over the place, and they can say all they want and they can try to hide behind, oh, that's the process of science. The process of science is that we're not going to know everything up front. Well, then don't make the claim if you don't know, correct? Don't make the claim if you don't know. So in other words, they get to get away with saying whatever they want to fit their narrative, but we as the lowly peon citizens don't get to say anything. So the question here is, who gets to decide what truth and misinformation is? Who gets to make that judgment? What authority gets to decide what it is? Wasn't that right supposed to be reserved for the individual? We as individuals, aren't we supposed to be able to decide what final truth is in our lives? Look, I don't have any problem with some kind of quote unquote official source claiming to have an official story. I'm okay with that, because then people can decide if that official story is official or not, right? What I don't agree with is squashing all other sources of information. That's not a fair playing field, because truth is supposed to stand on its own, isn't it? Over time, their truths that they're pushing down on us in the media, if they were to be reinforced over and over again and correct down through a certain length of time, then people would begin to believe the official narrative, wouldn't they? But we know that's not the case, and this is why they have to squash all other sources of truth, because then people can't look back and say, oh, that person was correct, or this person was correct. So what all of this amounts to is a direct infringement on free thought. Direct infringement on the ability to publish that free thought to a particular audience that an individual or a group of individual has earned. I thought we lived in America. You earn the audience, and then you're able to speak to the audience and let the audience decide if a person is providing correct information. And this is why they keep chipping away at our audience, unsubscribing people, because they don't want people to look back at the body of work and go, wow, that group over there, Casey's group over there, they've been right about so many things. They were calling it before it happened. That's the most damaging thing against the machine, because the machine cannot hold up against it, because they are spewing lies and we are spewing truth, if that makes any sense. Anyway, good morning, everybody. There's Bonnie, Rebecca, Anita, Eric, Meg, Eric, again, Cheryl, Stephanie. Good morning, everybody. Now, everything that they're disclosing now about the poker, we're going to call it, we can just call it all kinds of things. We're just going to have fun with this. We'll call it whatever we want to call it, right? Well, today it's the poker, okay? And all of the stuff that we were saying, and it's not just us, there are a lot of people trying to warn people, but we got pretty specific, didn't we? And a lot of those videos are still up before the thing ever came to market. And we were saying all the things before a single person got the poker. We were talking about neurological damage, weren't we? Before a single person ever even got it. We were talking about that. I'll have to dig up that video for you guys. But yet, misinformation is what channels like ours are being labeled with. Even when we talk about things like opinions, we say this could happen. Oh, you're not allowed to say that either. So what's the Supreme Court doing? Well, they ruled on social media. And what this really amounts to is a centralization of the truth. You can call this a ministry of truth. And we could even be more specific and call it the federalization of truth. And of course, that amounts to tyranny. Anytime you tell people how to think and limit anyone with any alternative viewpoints, that becomes a federalization of truth. It becomes tyranny. And it doesn't matter that the Supreme Court made the decision. What matters is that it's happening. Now, this ruling, let's read this here so you guys can get some specifics on this. I'll stop giving you my opinion. Let's read this. The Supreme Court on Wednesday issued a decision that could have enormous consequences for the 2024 election. And notice how they lump this in with the election. Of course, they're going to do that because the election is the most divisive topic that they've, gaslighted. And so they're going to attach this ruling to the election instead of all the other things that really matter, right? And it's saying the ruling said that the U.S. government can, for now, keep warning social media companies about mis- and disinformation threats it's seeing online. So literally the federal government is sending harsh and stern warnings to these social media platforms, which of course is all, what do they call that? A bait and switch. This is a red herring. They're making it look like the federal government is pressuring social media websites. And that's not what's really happening. What's really happening is that social media is working together with the government to squash free speech. And they're playing hot potato so that we can't pin the tail on the right donkey, if that makes sense. And they're hiding behind the right-left paradigm to get this done. Because what this does is it protects the social media websites. How does it do that? Well, you can't sue them, right? Because they'll just blame it on the government. They'll say the government's making us do this. The government's putting pressure on us. This is why we have to crack down. It's not us. You see how this new ruling actually protects the social media sites so that they can enact very harsh punishments to whoever they feel is saying something that they don't like? I can't even believe this. We're in a technocracy. And then they say, oh, even though the case was decided narrowly on a technicality and not on substance of the issues, the decision is nonetheless among the most consequential of the court's current term. What can the U.S. government tell social media companies to do? As a result of Wednesday's ruling, Murphy versus Missouri, agencies such as the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security will continue to be able to contact social media companies about posts they view as mis- and disinformation. Examples could include false claims about the Vidco 19 poker, unfounded allegations about election fraud, or other statements that in some situations may violate the platform's own policies. So this is a setup going into the election as well, because Trump's going to win in a landslide. In case you haven't gotten the memo, that was another thing we predicted right after he quote unquote lost. We knew he was not done, even when everybody thought he was done, for sure, before Biden even started his presidency. Well, it's going to happen again, but they're making it sound like, oh, democracy is, now that the Supreme Court has ruled on this, now the conservatives can't say anything on social media. We have to all come out and show a presence and vote for Trump. This is what they want you to think. Okay? This is all triggers. That's what all of these news stories are. They're triggers. It says here, Republican-led states, including Missouri and Louisiana, along with 5 social media users, claimed in 2022 that those contacts with social media companies were in fact part of an unconstitutional government campaign to silence free speech. So they're wrapping all this into the right-left paradigm. Nobody's talking about all the other truth out there. It's all about an election for two men who we all know are just empty puppets. It says the U.S. government has been flagging this type of content to social media companies for years, at times using extremely forceful language to demand the content be removed. At oral arguments, justices spent more than 90 minutes trying to discern the line between government persuasion on one hand and undue government coercion on the other. Why is the government talking to social media companies? The government's outreach to social media platforms has been happening since the 2016 election. Wow, and you know what? That's kind of when things started to change, didn't it? For us, anyway. And of course, another red herring, Russia's attempt to meddle in U.S. politics. So, strange times we're living in, you guys. And now, so far, I have not get any notifications from YouTube about how this will impact our channel. But needless to say, we're entering times where there won't be any dissent. There will not be a dissenting voice. The sites will say that they were forced under pressure of the U.S. government to do something, wash their hands of the attack on free speech. No one will be able to sue because it will have already been decided by the highest court in the land. And it's really the perfect circular argument to squash free speech. And from this point forward in history, there will be always only one official story to everything. And that is going to be a scary, scary time. And even if a bunch of people disagree, it will immediately be identified and terminated. We're entering the Terminator era of human history, the technocracy, and the screws are tightening. So, now this next story is creepy. Get into some of this other stuff. China says they found something on the moon. Now, I don't believe that they found what I'm about to read to you, that they say they found. But these kinds of stories are precursors, I believe, to future events. They will say the substance that they found on the moon is ubiquitous in the universe. They'll say it's everywhere. And therefore, when they find it inside human tissue, they will have a cover story. Oh, it's just naturally occurring in the universe. What is the substance? Are you ready for this? Okay, let's see who guesses the answer to this. What is the substance, do you think, that they're saying that they found on the moon, that China says they found on the moon? Just take a wild guess. Just take a wild guess. You could probably tell from the headline, but let's see who gets the answer to this. We'll get into the debate in a little bit, you guys, because I got some stuff to show you on that. All right. What did China say they found on the moon? You ready for this? There you go. Jason caught it. Graphene. Black goo. Yeah. Unbelievable. Okay, let's get into this. Can't even believe I have to read this. Now, we all know, remember Joan Rivers' famous last words? We all know where the graphene is and where it came from. We can't say. Chinese scientists have made an unusual discovery while analyzing the sample Chang'e 5s collected from the moon's surface in 2020. They found naturally occurring few-layer graphene, they call it. Few-layer graphene. Let's make this a little bit bigger. I can't even see this. Going blind over here, covering all these stories. Few-layer graphene for the first time, as state-run news agency Global Times reports, which could have major implications for humankind's plans to make use of a local resource once on the lunar surface. The discovery could also offer new insights into the early geological evolution of the moon, as the South China Morning Post reports. It may even upend a long-held theory that the moon was formed after a small planet collided with Earth, and that much of the carbon came from the impact. The prevalent giant impact theory has been strongly supported, so blah, 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 right? So now there's graphene everywhere. It's even on the moon. Not let's get into this debate. Let's handle this. The debate performance. This is hilarious. The Dems are panicking at Joe's performance? Really? I mean, you must have been living under a rock if you didn't know that this was going to happen to Joe Biden. As if they didn't know this all along. And this is disingenuous on its face. It's ridiculous. And it actually reveals media bias. This is the most flagrant example of media bias. And that is the real bombshell here. That is the real story. It isn't that Joe Biden's a senior citizen and incapable of remembering what he even ate for dinner last night. The real story here is the media and the media bias, and that they ever even allowed him to get to this point. And this is why the Supreme Court ruling is dangerous, because all the people trying to tell the truth are now getting pushed out of social media. Anyone with an audience to try to tell the truth, now it's all been centralized into the official media. Is the real story about what happened. And the glaring example of media mind control and how insidious it is and how it actually works. That the free world thought that Biden was a sufficient nominee for the Democratic Party and that they played everyone along all the way to this point. And then all of a sudden they find out now at a debate, all of a sudden now. And this is the dark side of American politics. How they can frame an individual in whatever light they want. They can call it the truth, stick a truth label on it. And if you say anything against that established truth, the Supreme Court says that's misinformation. All the fact checks in Biden's favor over the last several years, all the media stories giving him a pass. And all of this begs the question, what is the end game with this? What is the setup? Because I could have never anticipated that the Democrats were going to pretend to throw him under the bus. I did not see that coming. I'll be honest with you. I thought they were going to play this out all the way to the bitter end. And now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, we're in trouble. You even got people like Bill Maher. He gets blunt with fellow Democrats on Biden. He is going to lose. It's so apparent. You think, Bill Maher? You should have got that memo about 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. He's pretending like he's just coming to this realization. Come on. Kamala Harris on standby as Democrats plunge into panic mode. Now, of course, a Kamala president would be a disaster. There's all kinds of questions. Will the Democrats resurrect Hillary Clinton? Or will this just be a landslide Trump win? Now, my personal belief is that this will be a landslide Trump win. They may try to say that Trump didn't win, which would, of course, put us in very uncertain times with the country. It could trigger the conservatives to lash out. That could be their play. Or they'll let Trump legitimately win, and they'll have all the conservatives consent by vote so that Trump can do whatever he wants to do in his presidency and no one will give it a second thought. So those are the two scenarios I think is going to happen. Either Trump's going to win by a landslide, it will be accepted legally, and he'll get to do what thou wilt during his presidency and tie up all the loose ends he wasn't able to achieve during the presidency, or they'll say he didn't win, and then there will be some kind of weird civil war. Or they'll say it's a civil war, and it'll really just be our own black ops going around and starting trouble and making it look like a civil war. Those are my two scenarios that I think will happen with this election. because they do want to further pigeonhole conservatives into the Trump camp. Conservatives are going to come out in droves now after this debate to just ensure that there's a landslide victory. And if that happens or it doesn't happen, it's going to be crazy. Wow. Now let's get into some of these other stories today. Massive sinkhole. Got some footage of a massive sinkhole here. Boy, this is going to get crazy, you guys. This doesn't even look real. Look at this. A park in Alton, Illinois was closed after a massive sinkhole swallowed parts of the soccer field on Monday morning. Let's see if we can play this. Look at the size of this. Turn the sound off here. That doesn't even look real. You know what it looks like? It looks like, I don't even know what that looks like. It doesn't look real though. Does that look real to you? Look at the size of the sinkhole in Alton, Illinois. It looks like the pit of hell. That thing's about 40, 50 feet deep. You gotta ask yourself, what is this all about? Some good drone footage there. Give you the perspective next to a soccer goalie. Kind of see the size of this thing. Just unbelievable. Let's see if we could read about what they say caused the sinkhole. Wow. It says security footage obtained shows the moment of the sinkhole opened at the Gordon Moore Park. Shows a stadium light sinking and plumes of debris billowing in the air. It was surreal. See here. The collapse is thought to be a result of a working mine. No injuries are reported. Why would you build a soccer field on top of a mine? The mines have been here and in the area for decades and decades. It's never been brought up before, so I'm told it's an anomaly. The turf fields where the collapse happened were added to the park in 2019. Huh, interesting. So, sinkholes popping off. What else is going on? Oklahoma is bringing Bibles and the Ten Commandments back into schools. This, of course, is good news. This will, of course, trigger the left. I'm sure there will be lawsuits. Let's read and look at this, you guys. Well, let's see. I think there's a video here. Maybe we'll play this video. Let's see what Fox News has to say about this.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is pledging to pass a bill that would require public school and college classrooms to display the Ten Commandments just days after a similar Louisiana measure became law. Patrick posting on X, Texas would have been and should.
Wow, Texas too, Oklahoma, let's say Louisiana. Here we go, you guys.
Have been the first state in the nation to put the Ten Commandments back in our schools. I will pass the Ten Commandments bill again.
Now, Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Ten Commandments is a great place to start. There are other commandments that Jesus asked us to follow, things he asked us to do as part of being a Christian. And so he's the example that I follow. What many people don't know is the fourth commandment.
Out of the Senate next session. For more on this, let's bring in constitutional law attorney Mark Smith. Thank you so much for.
We don't need to listen to Mark Smith. Okay, so I'll put a link to this for you guys. But Oklahoma, it sounds like Texas and other states are following suit to bring the Bible and the Ten Commandments back into schools. What impact this is going to have, I do not know. I don't know the play here. On its face, it sounds fantastic, but we'll have to see how all of this plays out. Now, this is interesting. Found this story. We all know Tractor Supply Company, right? A really good place to go to pick up, needs for a homestead. A lot of people shop Tractor Supply Company. Well, guess what? They've canceled their LGBTQ culture. Why did they do this? Because there was backlash. Now, the real question here is, why did a company like a Tractor Supply Company decide to agree to do this in the first place? Why did they take on this culture when it doesn't really align with the kinds of people that come in and buy their stuff? Most of their stuff anyway. And the same question applies to companies like Bud Light. Why take the risk? Why lose all your people, all your customers to do something? And who's asking them and forcing them to do this? Are they getting paid to do this? What mechanism is behind the artificial, listen closely, the artificial forcing of an ideology onto companies? What is the mechanism behind that? It's not natural, because if it was natural, the company would just decide to do it themselves. Someone is telling them to do this. Let's read. American retailer Tractor Supply Company has eliminated its diversity, equity, and inclusion roles and goals following weeks of conservative criticism online. The home improvement and agricultural chain released a statement Thursday addressing the criticism and announcing the change. We've heard from customers that we have disappointed them. You think? We have taken this feedback to heart. I hope you do. The company has also announced other changes it would make, including no longer submitting data to the LGBTQ advocacy group Human Rights Campaign, focusing on rural American priorities, including education and veterans causes, and no longer sponsoring non-business activities like pride festivals and voting campaigns. Here's the thing, you guys. Regardless of how you feel about this, no company should be including politics of any kind in their businesses. It's just not cool. Because as you shop there, you begin to take on, or the goal is for them to get you to take on those said politics. It's the whole point of it. You're being marketed to when you go into these stores. And if you have to look at all this stuff and see it and get checked out by it, that's against some people's moral compass of what their belief system is and how their belief systems align. And you know what? We used to live in a world where you didn't have to see all this. Let's keep reading here. This move comes after weeks of criticism spearheaded by Robbie Starbuck, a producer and director turned conservative political commentator. Starbuck took aim at Tractor Supply's initiatives to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion, saying that they are putting more of a focus on race that divides us. He also criticized the company for celebrating Pride Month, providing scholarships to LGBTQ youth, and donating money to an advocacy organization that worked on stopping deportations during the presidency of Trump. Now, what is this really all about? Again, this is an artificially created matrix that we live in. It's not organic. All this belief systems, these belief systems, and what they're telling us and our youth are normal and organic is not organic at all. It's not organic at all. Let me try to give you a real example before we finish up the rest of these stories today. I'm just going to try to think of an example here on the fly. Imagine that there was government memo that went out that said that the sky is purple. And every single company that ever existed was sent out a memo and given money to say that the sky is purple. We all know the sky's not purple, but let's say that they just did this. And all of a sudden it was taught in schools that the sky is purple. And this isn't organic. It's all coming from the top down. I think we would all be a little upset about that. The sky is not purple. And the same thing happened with LGBTQ. This was marketed to us. It was included artificially, not organically, in every TV show we watched, and then forced in schools. It was not organic. It was coming from the top down. Now I'll get down to the bottom of this. at a certain point, I'm going to dig really deep and try to find out where the core of this is. What governing body or mechanism or whatever is sending these companies out these things, and what is the company getting back for it? That is the question we need to answer. I need to get to the bottom of that. I'm sure it's something that started under the Obama presidency, is my guess, and now it's being like played out. But to have all of this stuff being named, they actually give it a name here. It's called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That came from somebody, somewhere. Someone made that up, and it's being used ubiquitously all throughout. These companies, when they sign up for this culture, this company culture is what it is. They're signing up for a culture. It's kind of like back in, the early 2000s when they had affirmative action. Again, that was pushed from the top down, and they used specific language that we all knew that they were talking about affirmative action, right? Well, it's no different today. This is now being pushed on everyone. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's coming from somewhere. We need to get to the bottom of it. And it's not natural. It's not organic. Because if it was natural and organic, it would be coming from the bottom up. So you'd have these people, LGBTQ, going into businesses, boots on the ground, setting up their own organizations and nonprofits to try to market this to these companies, right? That would be organic. And then the companies would be like, no way, our customers don't represent that. No thanks. And then they walk out the door. And good try, right? But instead, we have this top-down thing where a company actually thinks it's a good idea, even though 99% of their customer base has nothing to do with this stuff. For some reason, the company thought it was a good idea to just do this, right? So Sarah says, pushed by the owners of BlackRock. Yeah, I'm gonna get into it. Thanks for that clue there. So I'll try to dig into that. We'll do probably a whole show on it if I can find something. BlackRock is a good place to start. All right, let's keep going, you guys. So that's Tractor Supply standing up for conservative values. That's awesome. Now, remember the most recent monolith that appeared in Colorado? We had one in Nevada and now in Colorado. These are the two most recent monoliths that appeared. These mirror-like sides appearing at the tops of peaks and things. Well, apparently they're saying there was a UFO that appeared before lots of people not far away from where the last monolith was placed. And you have to ask yourself, is there a connection? Where were the UFOs seen? In a place called Red Rocks. And several employees reported seeing a UFO in the night sky above the famed concert venue in Colorado. Let's read this. A dozen employees at Red Rocks Amphitheater claimed they saw a strange object light up the Colorado sky earlier this month, according to the National UFO Reporting Center. Now, did anyone pull their camera out and take a picture? So if there were no pictures taken, I don't know if I should even believe this. Here's the amphitheater. Everybody's got a phone in their hand. Did they take a picture of this UFO? Apparently they didn't, because if they did, or if they got video of it, it would be going viral right now, wouldn't it? So this is probably a big nothing story to try to heighten the fear surrounding the monolith that appeared close by, to try to make a connection. But let's read a little bit more of this just for fun. The amphitheater employee said the large disc-shaped craft appeared to have 3 levels of windows, and they forgot to pull their camera out because they were frozen by their... No, I just added that part in. The worker said it seemed as large as a 3-story office building. While it remained completely silent throughout its appearance, the employee claimed that the object tipped at an angle and slowly headed east right when the group dedicated their full attention to it. Okay. Man, I don't believe this. Do you guys see any pictures here? I don't see any pictures. So, this is to ramp up the fear and whatever disclosure is about to happen on some level that they're getting ready for. Now, a couple more stories for you guys today. Apparently, the U.S. military is not getting the recruits that they need, not keeping up with recruiting quotas, and it's become a real problem. And do you think it could be because of the very people who fought for freedom, lost their freedoms to choose whether or not they got the poker? Could that be a reason why they're not getting new recruits? Or maybe because the U.S. has developed a track record of senseless wars and senseless involvement in other countries' affairs. Could that be why? There are many reasons that I could think of as to why they can't recruit people to come to the military. So this begs the question, what is the military going to do about it? Let's read this. In an effort to address recruitment shortages for most U.S. military services, Congress is considering a pair of proposals to expand the military draft. One provision would automatically register young men for selective service rather than asking them to do it themselves. The other would also make women eligible for the draft. The odds of either of these changes becoming law, particularly adding women to the draft, appear slim. But the fact that they're on the table at all speaks to the deep concerns in Washington about the military's ongoing recruitment struggles, which has led some experts to question the sustainability of the U.S. armed forces. Now, here's what's going to happen. Without even reading the rest of this article, I'm going to tell you right now what's going to happen. We are headed toward a military state. In other words, how do you get people to join the military? Just pay them more money. We're going to enter an era where the people in the military are going to be making $100,000 a year. And that will put us on a military footing, a military type government. I forget what they call it. There's a word for it. But essentially, everyone will become military contractors. It's unbelievable where we are all headed, but this is probably where we're all headed. And that's how they'll get people to sign up. People will sell their souls. They'll sign up because who doesn't want to make $100,000 a year in the military, especially if you get to sit behind a desk and operate a drone. And I believe that this is where it's all headed. And now I just had another epiphany. Because isn't that why they push gaming so much? Because gaming is essentially the segue into a drone operator, isn't it? Who doesn't want to operate a third-person drone or a third-person robot? So we're going to have children, 17, 18 years old, behind a joystick operating robots and drones, just like in a video game. And then, in their eyes, in their subconscious mind, nobody ever really dies. It's just a video game. Now, you could take this a step further. Are you ready for this theory? What if, and this is just a theory, what if artificial intelligence can hack into a video game remotely? Because they all know what we're doing. All these video games are connected, aren't they? What if artificial intelligence could hack into a video game remotely? Any player on the planet, they can see the skill level of all of the infinite amounts of players playing a specific game, a war game, Call of Duty, whatever you want to call it. And then, are you ready for this? Tie into that session of a video game and link it to a real battle on the battlefield. Link a person who thinks they're playing a game with a very high skill level into a real situation on the battlefield. That would be absolutely insane. But they have the ability now to do that. Literally, a child could be on a game, operating a drone, thinking they're in some kind of simulation, and really, they're really killing people and taking people out in the battlefield. I think that that's where all this is headed, if I had to make a wild guess. Wow. They don't even need to recruit the person. They don't even know they're in the military. They don't even know they're in the military. Strange times, you guys. what else is going on? Here's the last story. Apparently, this thing about people being stranded in ships is a thing now. Remember the Dolly and the Maryland Bridge? They were stranded for 12 weeks. Well, that is the below version of this story, which is above. The Starliner aircraft, Boeing and NASA insist that the astronauts are not stranded. So these people apparently or allegedly went up into this spacecraft, Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, and they have been on the International Space Station weeks longer than anticipated. Several people online think that they're stranded or dead. But the official story is, oh, there's nothing to see here. They're fine. Just a few delays. They are not stranded. So, we'll keep an eye on this story above and below. Maybe we should look at the dates when all this went down. They were supposed to actually return to Earth on Trump's birthday. That's interesting. Artemis and Apollo. So we'll keep an eye on that story as well. Let me go back into the chat with you guys and see what's going on with you guys. So we get in as we finish up the show here. Could you imagine, right? Can you imagine your child is gaming and they're operating a drone and then all of a sudden things get very real? I think that's where all this is headed, you guys. All right. Good morning. I mean, think about it. What would an artificial intelligence do? They're going to take the most talented and the most accurate of all. What's the easiest and best way to do that? Why bother finding those people and recruiting them? Just tie them into the system without them even knowing. And then the artificial intelligence can use whatever measures they use to find the most accurate player, right? Heck, they wouldn't even need a real person to do it at that point. The artificial intelligence would just do it itself. But I think they need that human touch to it to make it even more accurate. They used a video game to recruit in OA. Yes, I remember that, Ike. Yep, Call of Duty. All right. Denmark to charge $100 each cow for burping. Wow. Says Solemn Peace. Thanks for that information. Yeah, or what if, okay, you guys remember The Last Starfighter? Remember that movie? I think we decoded that. I was like from the early 90s or maybe the late 80s. The Last Starfighter. And in that movie, he is playing a video game, one of those console video games, outside of some resort, way out in the desert. And he's so good at it, and he beats all the high scores, that aliens come from space and recruit him to save the universe. Yes, this is the Last Starfighter scenario. I think the same thing is going to happen now. Child could be playing a video game, and all of a sudden they're interrupted with a notification that says, "It is up to you to save America from nuclear threat. This is a live exercise. You are now in the drone pilot seat." And believe it or not, people would eat that stuff up. They would feel honored to do that. But that is creepy. Creepy, creepy. All right. Oh, that was 40 years ago, huh, Joe? Wow. Yep, Louis Gossett Jr. was in that movie. The Last Starfighter. Huh. Okay. Yep, in the trailer park, that's right. Centaurs came to find Alex Rogan. Wow, sounds like Joe Rogan almost. You guys are so smart. Dark Matter series. Dark Matter. Oh, yeah. I'm going to get on that. I have that pulled up in my tabs. Thank you. I'm going to take a look at that. Absolutely. All right. Cannon's watched it 20 times. That was a good movie back in the day, wasn't it? Alex and Joe Rogan. Okay. Centauri was his name. That's right. That was Alien's name. Ooh, like Alpha Centauri. I think they were from Alpha Centauri or something. Dark matter is graphene. I believe you are correct. Okay. Enemy Mine. Yeah, that was another movie of that time period, which also starred Louis Gossett Jr., if I'm correct. Thanks, love you guys too. Thanks. Thanks, Joy. Thanks, everybody. Okay. All right, you guys, I'm going to pop off of here. Maybe I'll get into Dark Matter, and that'll be tomorrow's show. I'll try to watch a couple episodes today and get something put together for you guys tomorrow. Love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Much love.